about something that I just spoke about before, is expanding your network. So we have a guest moderator who we're very excited to have. Divya is the secretary of the Integrated Marketing Association. She first came to my attention in the whole, I always see you walking around, but she was also on the winning team of the challenge last semester, where she won the Destination New York Challenge, and students were challenged to work for the marketing team to promote a hotel group in a specific neighborhood of New York. So it was so exciting. Watched it, and it was so good. And actually, the winning team was all integrated marketing students. So, and it was really so impressive. So you are well on your way. You folks are in for a treat. Thank you so much for being here, Divya. I'm gonna let you take it away because you're more than prepared, and enjoy this session. When you meet these three amazing people, well, I will speak for itself.
So as Dr. Haneen mentioned, we are the Expanding Your Network panel, and I have these three amazing ladies with me. I'm super excited for this conversation, and I'm sure they're going to share a wealth of information to you. So we'll just get started right away. Could we please introduce yourself, tell us your name, where you work, and your role. And while doing so, explain how you personally define networking at this stage of your career today.
I'm Nya-Gabriella. I oversee the brand partnerships team at UTA for their creators division. So I connect brands with influencers that we represent at UTA and their management arm DVA. I would say, networking is a big part of my life, but I mean, I don't even know how to describe it, but I would say it's part of making personal connections and expanding that into your business. And I feel like a lot of people like to make networking very robotic, but I like to say it's just like making new friends. And how can you make new friends and connect them with other friends, and how does it make sense? I think we don't have to put so much pressure on it. It's just like, do we vibe? And then you kind of go from there.
Hi everyone, my name is Amber. I am a Senior Client Solutions Manager at LinkedIn. So I work on our ad sales team, working with healthcare clients globally as well as within the US, and really focusing on helping build their connective tissue, if you will, on the LinkedIn platform. So that's a little bit about my job. And then as far as networking goes, very similar to what Nya-Gabriella said, I personally have always really valued the relationships that I've built in whether it's from jobs or from friends or friends of friends. But I think what really helps get that conversation going is not putting so much pressure on it to be perfect and robotic. Like she said, I think being able to have an idea of what you want your elevator pitch to be, but have it in like more of a thoughtful and conversational way versus being like, my name is so-and-so and I'm going to just give you my 10-second corporate pitch. So I think having that balance of knowing what your value is while you're also networking and being able to like weave that into conversation.
So, well, I'm Haneen, and I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at NYU-SPS. And the way I would define networking, well, in my personal life, it's dealing with students and alumni. But as far as I guess my career, I have been lucky in that I graduated from college and then I worked at my alma mater and then at colleges following. So my networking experience is really within the university environment. So yeah, I hope that I'm able to share some helpful information about that today.
Sounds good. So while the first half of questions is specifically for each one of you, feel free to jump in and add your 2 cents to any of the questions as you will. So the first question we have is for Haneen. So Violet Network is often described as a LinkedIn-like platform where everyone is a first-level connection, which is NYU. How do students and alumni benefit from joining, and what makes it unique compared to other platforms?
Yeah, so I can first just give a background about the Violet Network, which you kind of already did. But the Violet Network is an online platform that is actually linked with Handshake. So you might already have heard of that from the career people. But it is a platform that is designed to allow you to access alumni directly and then fellow students faculty, staff, and industry partners as well. And it basically just gives you the ability to take networking into your own hands. So if you see a profile that really stands out to you, you're able to directly reach out to them and say like, hey, oh my gosh, you work in this field that I have an interest in. I'm a freshman or I'm a sophomore, and I'm just, you know, really hoping to pick your brain, have coffee. And then the special part is that everyone is an NYU affiliate somehow, whether a graduate or the faculty or something. So it kind of takes away the edge of like having a cold call. Like everyone's kind of like a warm, it's not quite a cold call, it's kind of like a warm, you have a warm lead on everyone. And then what I feel makes it an especially special platform is that, so there's the SPN, there's the NYU Violet Network, which is across all NYU, and then there's also the SPS Hub version of the Violet Network. And that is really helpful for departments, so departments like IM&C, for example. So that allows you more direct ability to network with people within your division. You can start conversations in groups, or just kind of see who are the alumni from your specific program. So
Thank you for sharing that. To give our students a little bit of an incentive to join, could you share any success stories that maybe have happened in the past 1 or 2 years?
yes, so I think the biggest success story would be a partnership we had with the Wasserman Center on creating a mentorship program, and that was specific to SPS. So it was, you know, very tight knit, and we had a lot of great mentorship relationships, long-term mentorship relationships come out of that. And I think the most exciting thing about it was that it was very authentic. Like it was not really a formal sort of a mentorship program. Things became quite informal, and students and alumni just handled that relationship, you know, all on their own. They were able to just, you know, arrange times with different people. I believe it usually would start with like a little coffee chat or even like a phone call. And then as the relationship grew, it would, you know, it would change. And it's also obviously online. So even if the person is not based in New York, you can still form a connection with someone. And we are actually hoping to bring that program back. So that is hopefully an incentive that you guys would be able to participate in programs like that.
Sounds good. So Amber, you've actually spent much of your career at LinkedIn, helping companies show up authentically in the market. What advice would you give to students on how to authentically show up when networking, whether it's on LinkedIn or in person?
Yeah. I think when it comes to LinkedIn, you know, I know LinkedIn is kind of referred to as a digital resume, if you will, and that is to a certain extent very, very true. Of course, you're gonna, you know, post what jobs you've had, what your responsibilities are and whatnot. But I think there's a bit of a misconception that it has to be written like a resume. I think on LinkedIn, there's actually an opportunity for you to have your own voice, whether it's through, you know, writing a summary of your experience or your background and giving like a bit more color into who you are as an individual and like what your interests are and what your strengths are, as well as like posting on LinkedIn. You know, I think that's like a great way to get publicity for yourself by just being your own thought leader, whether it's, you know, in marketing or in a specific industry or specific any sort of, you know, professional topic. But yeah, I think that, you know, LinkedIn has also evolved a lot over the past 5 to 10 years. It is really becoming more of a professional social network versus just for job searching. So I think being able to highlight yourself on the platform as best as you can is only going to help you get more visibility when it comes to networking or for jobs, and so forth. And I would say like the same thing applies for any conversations that you have as well. Similar to what I was mentioning earlier, you know, having what you want to say in the back of your head about your, you know, your strengths and your background, but again, not leading with that and having it be more conversational.
So from your perspective, what would be 2 to 3 best practices students should use on their own profile so that they could stand out, and especially when you consider the current job market?
Yeah. So definitely write a summary. I think that is a area of the LinkedIn platform that gets very underutilized. A lot of people just put their job descriptions and whatnot, but summary is, again, what I was saying earlier, this is your opportunity to show your network or potential, hires, like who you are, where your interest lies, and like what you've actually done outside of just like your normal responsibilities. I think giving examples of projects or clients that you've worked on is a great way to highlight that. There's also ways to, put, if there's any like digital work that you've done, you can also add that to your summary as well, because there's an opportunity to add media to your LinkedIn profile. And I think also there's, within settings, right? Being open to opportunities and making sure that is turned on, whether you're employed or not, is really important. Because if you're thinking about it from a recruiter mindset, when they are reviewing applicants or even proactively reaching out to applicants, you want yours to say that you're open to opportunities, just so that you can always welcome any conversation that you're having. Whether it's for professional, networking reasons or for potential legal opportunities.
Thank you for sharing that. So a third layer of networking today is how we show up on social media. Nya, from your experience, what networking strategies from your industry can students adapt to their own career?
Yeah, so I've spent my career in like social media influencer strategy, so I've never been shy to share on the internet. And I think I've sat in a like interesting intersection because I use LinkedIn to really attract brands, and then I use Instagram to kind of connect like the right influencers, understand what industry events are going on. So there's a few different strategies that I like to do. When I was kind of more junior in my career, I used LinkedIn like every day. I would find an interesting article that I liked, I would post it and like add my 2 cents. Now I try to find this, like, I feel like you have more fun on LinkedIn these days. And I try to show my personality more, so I'll find interesting ways to share what our influencers are doing. So one time I did Fresh Faces Friday, very cheesy, but it worked. And I used emojis to highlight different creators. So like the lipstick emoji for a new beauty influencer, a basketball emoji for a new sports influencer. And then on the other side, on Instagram, I personally love Instagram. TikTok still scares me, but on Instagram, I used to do a lot. I wouldn't do more, but I used to do a lot of day in the life content where I would show like what meetings I was taking, what different offices I was going to, because I'm kind of like on the road a lot. And that helped me a lot because when I would go to brands and be like, oh, I'm having a meeting with L'Oreal or KWT or whatever, other people in the industry be like, oh, I didn't know you did lunch and learns. Can you come to my office? Or like, would you be open to meeting my team? So just being really like still having fun and using the native platforms for what they're meant to do, but trying to show personality and strategically showing people what I want them to see.
So how do you strike a balance between being authentic and strategic when you're working in circles?
Yeah. Listen, I'm a certified yapper and I overshare, so it definitely is hard for me. But I think having a little bit of social media strategy in my back pocket does help. So again, I just try to make sure that I'm showing people what I want them to see. And even though I am an oversharer, it doesn't mean that people are entitled to see my whole life. So me personally, I don't really post on the weekends. Like I kind of just chill with my family and I post later. But I really do like to, I don't post real time. So even though I'm doing a day in the life, if I'm doing the day in the life on Tuesday, I'll look at everything that I have and post it on a Wednesday. Just so I can be really mindful of like what I'm editing, what I'm sharing. And sometimes you do a date in the life, you do a get ready with me or whatever, you have all the intentions and it just doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, you don't have to force it. Other people have some people are like post it and delete it later. I believe in screen recordings and screenshots, so I don't do that. I think like take a beat, and if it feels weird, it doesn't feel like it aligns, then I'll post it.
That is definitely something that we should all be doing already. So fun fact, Nya and Amber are both current students in the Executive Master of Science program. As both a student and a working professional, you've experienced networking on both sides. How has your view of this type of networking evolved during grad school?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just another avenue as far as meeting people to have conversations with. I know that sounds really obvious, but I think especially as you get deeper into your career and get more senior, you're not necessarily like networking as hard as you were when you were in the beginning of your career, because you're obviously actively looking for a job and you're trying to climb the corporate ladder potentially. And they get to a point where it's like you're like, oh, I have my network, that's it, like I'm set. And then you start grad school as a part-time, and it's like a totally new avenue of people to meet. And I think it also is just it's great because, again, similar to what she was saying about the Violet Network and having that warm lead, it's an immediate warm lead of being, hey, I'm an NYU student as well, love to chat with you. And again, it helps create that, comfort level of striking a conversation. But yeah, I think this program in particular has opened my eyes to a lot of different networking opportunities, and also just reminded me that no matter what stage you are in your career, like there's a whole new, slew of people to meet.
Yeah, I would say I think when I was in undergrad or more junior in my career, I thought of like networking as like checking a box, like, okay, I need a job, so I'm getting the coffee, and I wasn't as mindful about it. And now going through grad school, I really see networking as almost like building my community, whether I need to rely on them on information, and it's been so helpful to talk through projects. So I really think of it as like being more well-rounded and more intentional, because I think we underestimate peer-to-peer networking. Like when I think about how I've grown in my career, a lot of my close friends and also people that are doing amazing things in their career are people that I started out like as a junior account associate at Conan Wolf. And now I think about one of my friends, he's like the head of the Edelman, Texas office, and he's doing amazing. And we're not doing, making jokes in the back of the class, like, so I think just peer-to-peer is really important. And sometimes it's not, networking isn't always going to be an end goal. Sometimes it's going to be just information sharing, supporting one another. Community is really important, especially right now.
Along the same lines, Haneen, you've worked at universities in the US and abroad. How has your own experience navigating building different academic and professional communities shaped your perspective?
So I'm from the Middle East, and I've had the opportunity to also work at universities in the Middle East. And I definitely noticed very strong cultural differences, and it is something I would encourage you to actually lean into, like the context that you're in, and adjusting your strategy, your networking strategy based on that. So just as an example, in the Middle East, I sensed that people, including myself, are not so comfortable just asking for, let's say, like help, but they're a lot more interested in asking for help from like a family or a friend or someone that they have like a connection to, and they're actually people are a lot more willing to give than they are to ask for help, and so that's kind of been like a unofficial networking strategy that I have, which is that I feel like if I have the ability to help someone in the position that I'm in, even if it's not a really big way. For example, I work in alumni relations. I don't work in admissions, but sometimes people will come to me and say like, oh my God, I want to go to NYU. And I'll be like, oh, I could easily send an email and just connect you with the person who could help you. It's not a big thing required from me, but it's just like a little something. And then the next time I maybe need something, I would feel more comfortable asking. So that's just like my personal cultural background, as well as like the background that I have experience working in. But I would say that you could really apply that to any context.
Sounds good. Moving on to the next topic, what would be one common mistakes you see students or early career professionals make when networking, and how can they avoid it? It's a question for all of you.
I would say, I think this was mentioned in the last panel, just like lack of research. I feel like that's a big one. And in this day and age, I'm like, use ChatGPT, like, do the Googles. So that's usually a little disappointing, and then I think sometimes I listen, I'm an open book, but sometimes I feel like people, I can tell when they're like checking a box. And I'm like, oh, like that makes me feel weird, so I think, just really treat it as like, being personable, someone took their time to meet with you, and just be conscious of that, and then also be conscious of their time too, because sometimes I get on the phone with someone and I'm very unclear as to like what they want. And I'm not saying you have to get on the phone like, hey, I want a job, but sometimes people are like, hey, how are you? I saw you just got married, and I don't know this person, so I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? So I would say like eventually you kind of got to get to the point, in the most like polite way possible.
I would agree with all that for sure. I think just again reiterating that not everyone knows everything, right? Like no matter what stage of your career that you're in, whether you're right out of college or right out of grad school, or you're 20, 30 years into your career, like no one knows everything. And so coming from a curious place will always serve you better than again trying to like list off your qualifications in like one fell swoop and say like this is my background, this is what I'm trying to do. I think like truly getting an understanding, again similar to what Nya-Gabriella said about asking questions, having it be authentic and conversational is always the best way to go, because even if it's not the right fit or it's not the right opportunity, they might know someone that does have the right opportunity for you. And so the way you come off and present yourself in networking is again going to be remembered by people. And so just having like that authentic conversation will always steer you in the right direction.
I think a common mistake I've seen, especially like New York specific, is just that there is so much to do and there are so many networking opportunities, so many events. And I see sometimes people not moving with purpose. You're just kind of like overbooking yourself and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna go to this, this thing and then this whatever. And like you're completely spread thin and you end up totally burned out and you may not have even, hit the goals that you were trying to have because you maybe didn't even develop the goals. So I would just say that, as you are trying to build a network, trying to just have an idea of like, okay, what is the industry that I ideally want to end up in? What would I even stand to benefit from a network? Like, what exactly would I be getting out of that? And then putting your actual effort behind those, those goals.
I would also, sorry, just add one more thing. I would also say like, if you're coming to someone more senior, don't underestimate what you have to add as someone that's like just starting out in your career. I love meeting younger people and like, I'm like, tell me who you're following on TikTok, you know what I mean? So I think you can still network up and down, and you have something to offer too, so try to make it a two-way conversation as much as possible.
Sounds good. So aside from making connections through the Violet Network, are there any particular resources from the NYU-SCS alumni relations that you could share with the students? Maybe resources, workshops, or events?
Yes, so we partner very closely with the Wasserman Center. And we often do what we call like student alumni engagement events. So these are like mentoring nights, panels, different sessions. And I believe you guys probably all receive those in your emails, like all the newsletters that you're probably receiving. So I would definitely say pay very close attention to those events. I will also say even if alumni are not marketed to be attending an event, they may still be attending an event because we are often asked to provide alumni for events. So if people have, especially like those big events that are marketed, we will often, ask alumni to attend, and it would really just kind of be in line with what my fellow panelists were saying about just like being really authentic, putting yourself out there, introducing yourself to people. Usually there's name tags, you can see someone is an alum or not, and everyone, I will say almost, actually I would go as far as say everyone, yeah, everyone who attends these student alumni engagement events want to support alumni because they are people who have specifically said, we are volunteering our time, we want to come meet students and offer our help. So just don't be shy to approach them.
Hear that? Make sure to hit them up after the panel. But before we wrap up and head to our last question, I'd like to share that during my internship, for example, my instructor shared that if we do anything, we should do 30 minutes at least every day to start with, or once per week to network. But I noticed that when I ask this question to panelists or like for a coffee chat, they always say something different. So if a student had only 30 minutes a week to network, how should they most effectively spend it?
30 minutes a week?
Or 30 minutes a day?
Yeah, I'm like, you need 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you need 30 minutes a day, whether it's in person or live. So I probably start my work morning, on LinkedIn. And I just go through my messages and my connections and stuff like that. And then I try to set up like 1 or 2 coffees. Like, I feel like that's the way to go, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit different on LinkedIn, literally 24/7 because I work there. But I think making sure that you're utilizing the capabilities on LinkedIn. So if there's a specific company, or if there's a specific person, or if there's a second degree connection that you're able to leverage, that's what I would personally do, is like kind of have a, not a to-do list, but like jot down like what your goal for the week is of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's setting up a coffee chat with a specific person, or doing research on a company before interviewing, or looking through like LinkedIn jobs, for example, to see what's available right now and like what the market is like, and getting an idea of what the salaries are and the years of experience are. So I would say definitely leveraging like what LinkedIn has to offer from a resource standpoint too. And then really leveraging your connections and your second degree connections to make those introductions. So that way you're not just going in blind and just messaging random people, although that works too sometimes, and I've certainly had success doing that. But I think if you have the opportunity to use your network, always start with that first.
So as the Violet Network rep, I'm obviously plug the Violet Network. But I would say to use both platforms. So log on to both Violet Network and the SPS Hub. And honestly, just browse. We just kind of went through like a relaunch, and I have been loving the new interface. Everyone's headshot pops up with like a little bio, their job, their details. And so I will often, I obviously use it for alumni relations purposes, but for example, so I'm using this to arrange site visits for students. So I'm for example, trying to set up a site visit at Morgan Stanley in Jersey City. You might be looking for a job at Morgan Stanley in Jersey City. It's the same use basically, but you can literally just log on, search the company you're interested in working at, search even specifically the city that you would like to work at. And in many cases, multiple alumni will pop up, and you can get really specific with your searches and literally just try to reach out. I will be totally honest, alumni don't always respond. Some of our users are more active than others, but that's why I would say, we're talking 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week even. Just, cast a net and make the message, somewhat personalized. If the alum works, like I said, at a specific city, or they even have like a specific specialization or background, say that, like, hey, I noticed you work in this and I am this, and make a genuine effort to connect with this person. Alumni immediately get that, even if they're not logged, constantly logging into the Violet Network, they get an email that says, this person's trying to contact you, and hopefully they will reply, and you'll be able to make it connect.
I noticed that we're almost at our end of our time. So to wrap up, if you could leave students with one key takeaway from our conversation, maybe in a sentence or two, that they should keep in mind as they prepare to enter the job market, what would it be?
I would say be mindful of your connections online and offline, and for me, I would say use social media like as your starting point, and really try to meet people offline, set up a coffees, go to events, and I think those are really.
I agree with all that as well. I think the other thing too is, even if you are in the market for a new job or for getting a job, it's okay for you to also feel like it's not the best fit for you, and saying no is also okay. I think a lot of people are very quick to say like, all right, I need a job, I'm gonna take it, and obviously in certain circumstances, you should and people do have to. But I think that no job is like worth like potentially like, you know, having your career go on a different path than you actually want it to be. Or, you know, again, having your reputation because you don't like the job or you are not passionate about it. And so I think keeping that in mind too, it's like making sure it aligns with what you ultimately want, but everything is, of course, also a step.
Yeah, I would say just be strategic with how you spend your time. There is no shortage of opportunities. If you're not finding what you're looking for in a specific, you know, let's say area, look elsewhere. Even within NYU, there are so many clubs, groups, so many newsletters you can subscribe to and just like get the information of like different events that are happening. So just be wise with how you spend your time, and hopefully it will yield results.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice today. We have to go.
Thank you.